Hi, today is the 27th of September 2017, and on account of the way the Brexit negotiations are going, I'm asking everybody today who voted to exit, which was a majority vote, to vote again today on this www.change.org petition to give notice to the EU that we want a Brexit on WTO rules in March 2019. This way we take control from the EU and we end the uncertainty. And the banks, the businesses, they can all begin to make plans for March 2019. So the EU can approach us afterwards if they want to negotiate other terms for the EU and UK citizens that are in the 27 nations, and about final payments and trade, etc., etc. But if we give our notice now, we will be less subservient to the unreasonable and now onerous EU demands upon us. If they do not want to negotiate, then we just do what we feel is best and honourable. The ex-Bank of England bank manager Melvin King and others have said that to go to the WTO, the World Trade Organization rules, is a valid option. In our current situation, I think it is preferable. Two ex-chancellors of the Exchequer, Lord Lawson and Lord Lamont, and many other experienced MPs backed Brexit. If they feel it is possible, with all their knowledge and experience, we can trust in that. For I can see with my own eyes the damage to Britain that the EU membership is doing to us. A thriving economy is no good if it just benefits an imported immigrant overpopulation to the detriment of those already living in Britain. There is no right or wrong. There are pros and cons either way. It is a matter of opinion as to what will happen when we Brexit, or even if we remain, because there are dangers if we remain. We may have a downturn for a short term if we Brexit, but we also hear that excessive tourism is damaging nations and cities, that we need to reduce climate temperature and demands on the environment, and that the EU actually keeps the third world nations in poverty as they cannot trade freely due to EU rules. Experts say international trade is growing in the world's nation, but is reducing in the EU bloc, and that unemployment is high in most EU nations. It is time to change the way we live in the UK and worldwide, including the world population growth and what we believe, which leads many to murder for God, believing they will obtain life after death. How can a modern society believe such things and have books that promote such things? Many Remainers only voted to remain for fear of what it would do to the UK economy. But the EU membership is already onerous to the UK and other smaller EU nations. It is leading us to bankruptcy and destruction of our services and way of life due to unlimited immigration and overpopulation. Our systems and services are being utilised and overloaded by those who can just turn up from the EU, often getting priority over UK residents due to having one or more children. We do not have enough school places or homes. The NHS is at near collapse. Our wages are too low due to oversupply of non-skilled job seekers. 40 languages are spoken in our schools, and children and others are not speaking English on arrival to the UK, so we have to pay for translation services, or our schools spend time and money teaching to the detriment of normal teaching. It is logical that the influx of 3.6 million persons, EU citizens, will have this effect. 80% of the 3.6 million EU citizens in the UK are in non-skilled jobs. This means we have imported 2.8 million, that's the 80%, unnecessary EU citizens that we will have to care for and benefits, schoolings, homes, NHS services, for the sake of the 20%, or only 720,000 who may be professionals working here, of which 55,000 are in the NHS. It seems we import and increase our population in order to employ and care for those we import, for many NHS patients are not British. In the process, we change the makeup and character of Britain forever, and it will not think like or be Britain anymore, but something very different. Tolerance may become a thing of the past, for it is the people that direct the nation, the people living here, resident here, that direct the nation and give it its character. Already ethnic and minority groups shape our culture, gain more media coverage, and demand more preferential treatment than the majority. They are more and more in places of power and influence, and I have certainly experienced reverse racism. We are already the most densely populated nation after Japan. Experts say in 10 years we will have 9 million EU citizens in the UK. These will certainly have 1 to 4 children or more of each, so swelling our population. We are 65 million in Britain at present. What happens when we become 100 million? Some cities already have a minority of British residents due to many ethnic groups. Since 1997, our homeless numbers have increased to 80% again. This corresponds with the period since 1997 to the present day that the Labour government, since 1997 to 2010, that the Labour government allowed the Eastern European nations free access to come to the UK, for which Labour later apologised, admitting too late that they made a mistake in the expected numbers. We can never provide enough homes for the homeless when 500 million EU citizens, many from poor EU nations with high unemployment and few benefits, can freely arrive in the UK without jobs and homes. It is an impossible task. If you watch the TV or Grenfell Tower interviews, most of those interviews are non-British and housed in our social housing. Non-British born are often given the few social homes we have, even before our homeless ex-soldiers, of which there are 7,000. These soldiers have also suffered death, loss, depression, being blown up, ill health, disability, and they for the sake of our nation's defence. Yet they are in the cold, wet street as a reward. Do EU citizens think of them when they are housed first by Britain? Those already in social housing often complain when they are offered something that is not in the right area, or is too small, or a bed and breakfast, and even some now want a balcony, and some even now want a balcony as per a Channel 4 programme. Even EU and other non-British citizens have become part of the demand and complain culture, even when what they have received is being paid by the taxpayer. And ingratitude prevails. Social housing is often given to those who conceive irresponsibly so they can get a home, and they do. So I ask, if any UK government builds new homes, taking up our precious green belt land, who will we be building them for? Mostly for the imported EU citizens, perhaps, and the irresponsible, of which there will be an endless demand. For they come with children, and our laws regretfully give priority to such irresponsible individuals. The EU will never negotiate a good deal. It is 27 nations against the one small nation of Britain, and they fear giving us a good deal in case other EU nations decide to exit also. Since the EU referendum, we have seen many of the 600 or so MPs and many in the House of Lords try and undermine the Brexit vote, saying we did not know what we voted for, and trying to reverse or ignore the vote. They give us a storyline that they uphold the democratic vote to Brexit, but we did not vote to wreck the economy. We knew the risks and voted to Brexit anyway. Remainers do not know what will happen in the future, but I know what is happening already, and we may well be better off economically eventually, certainly culturally, when we Brexit. And if not, I do not want us to continue as we are now, which I can see will end in disaster if we do not stop EU membership. and free movement of people. Democracy has almost died in Britain due to the denial of or attempts to reverse the Brexit vote. The one vote of one person will stand for nothing if they do reverse it, or neuter it to such an extent it changes nothing. Nor will Britain stand for anything. In the process, we lose the essence and control of our nation, and we may also end up bankrupt. So be bold, vote Brexit on WTO rules today, and we may just save our nation. It may be our last hope. So I ask that you sign the petition today, and by doing so, we vote to Brexit on WTO rules, giving notice to the EU as soon as possible that we will be exiting the EU in March 2019,